Hello, boys and girls. I'm here to talk history with you again. So, assuming everyone watched yesterday's video, then you saw that, or you heard that we were talking about how reviewing Egypt used to be divided into Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt, and King Narmer in Upper Egypt defeated the Lower Egyptians, and they all became one Egypt. And that way, without fighting, they were able to focus on farming and building, and they grew to be rich and powerful and strong. So that was good. Now over in Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, maybe you remember, we're gonna be using this map page later, but so over between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, there were little villages in the area of Sumer. So Sumer wasn't all united. Everyone wasn't under one ruler in Sumer. So it was a bunch of little villages. Remember, villages are like the smallest group of houses living together. And these villages grew and grew, and they became their own separate cities. And these cities each had their own rulers, their own kings, their own laws, and they were very separate from each other. They became known as city-states. So I'm going to continue reading. But the Sumerians wanted to make all the quarreling cities into one country, just like King Narmer made Egypt into one country. So, one Sumerian. Not all Sumerians wanted this. One Sumerian did. I read that wrong. One Sumerian did. And this man's name was called Sargon. I always think of his name, when I say it, I want to say, Sargon. His name is Sargon, but his name, and because of what he does, you'll find out, but it makes me want to say it in an evil way. So one man wanted to take all the cities and make them into one, just like Egypt, and his name was Sargon. There are many stories about Sargon. One of the oldest stories says that he had no parents. He just floated down the Euphrates River in a basket when he was a baby. Does this sound familiar? The basket got stuck in the reeds at the edge of the river near a city-state called Kish. One of the servants of the king of Kish happened to be down at the river, getting water in a jug. He heard a strange sound. Where was that coming from? The servant saw a basket. He bent down to look inside and saw a crying baby. The baby Sargon. The servant took the basket back to the palace of the king of Kish. The king gave him permission to keep the baby and to raise it. So Sargon grew up inside the palace. He became strong and handsome and popular with the other courtiers, so people who hung around the palace. He even became the cupbearer to the king. At every meal, he would bring the king his wine in a golden cup. The king's cupbearer was one of the most trusted servants, because it would have been very easy to poison the king's wine. But the king of Kish trusted Sargon to do this. He shouldn't have. Sargon made friends with the most powerful people at the palace, including the commanders of the army. He became so popular that he convinced the army to follow him instead of the king. And he even persuaded the army to kill the king. And that would make Sargon the ruler instead of the current king of Kish. This all happened in the year 2334 BC, before Christ. But being king of Kish wasn't enough for Sargon. He didn't just want to be king of one city. He wanted to be king of the whole land of Mesopotamia. So he started to attack the cities all around him. He fought over 50 wars to conquer Mesopotamia. Eventually, Sargon ruled all the country between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. He built a new capital city called Akkad, and he named his new empire the Akkadian. It's the Akkadian Empire. The new empire is called Akkadia. Now, Sumer was united into one country under one ruler. But many of the cities Sargon conquered didn't like being part of the Akkadian Empire. They were used to making their own laws and running their own affairs. Sargon knew that to stay in charge, he would have to make the cities all obey his laws. So he used his army to force all the Akkadian cities to follow him. He sent soldiers from the Akkadian army to live in each conquered city. They made sure that the people who lived in the city were following Sargon's laws instead of their own. If the conquered cities didn't obey, the soldiers punished them. This is called a military dictatorship. So the word military means having to do with the army, and a dictatorship is when people have to obey the government or the rulers without asking any questions. So in a military dictatorship, the army is in charge. Sargon's empire lasted for years, but only because he used the power of his army to keep it together. That is the end of chapter 5. So I made a little demonstration, and I'm going to turn the camera around, so you're going to have to be listening carefully. You're not going to see my face anymore. So this is kind of how I imagine the area between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, Mesopotamia. We have each of the little city-states with their high walls and watchtowers. So here's the walls of the city-state and the watchtowers. And then my puzzle pieces are the houses in there. And there's little blue unit cube people. These are the people living in the city-states, and they're all separate. But then, let's pretend that I'm gonna get new pieces. We've got the military in red. This is the army. And Sargon is going to be a hexagon, because hexagon and Sargon kind of rhyme. I knocked over a watchtower. So here we have Sargon and his military. They want to conquer everyone. So what they do, they invade, and this is Akkad, the new capital city. And Sargon's got his army in Akkad. They're ruling in Akkad. So they go and fight wars with all the other cities, and they conquer them. Their army goes in and conquers them. Army goes in, conquers them. Army goes in, conquers them. So now, Sargon keeps some of his army guys in each of the cities to force people to obey his laws. So he's up here in his tower. He's like, I'm the best. I'm the most powerful. Look at me. Look at me. I'm Sargon. And the army does whatever Sargon says, and everyone is too scared, because if they don't follow the army's rules, aka Sargon's rules, if they don't follow the army's rules, then they'll get punished. So now Sargon gets to sit in Akkad, in his capital city, and this whole Akkadian empire follows his laws because he has his army everywhere, making them follow his laws, even though they don't want to. So everyone's united now, but they're not very happy about it. Still, it worked. Is it the best way to be a ruler? I'm not sure. Let's do a little recap. So we're in Mesopotamia, in Sumer, and Sumer is divided into different city-states. Remember, Mesopotamia means between two rivers. Meso, between, Potamia, two rivers. I forget actually how it breaks down. But anyway, it means between two rivers because it's between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Sargon, his origin story, he floats down the Euphrates River to Kish, and he's the cupbearer. He grows up and becomes trusted and liked by everyone, friends with everyone, and he becomes the cupbearer to the king of Kish. He is trusted. But should he have been trusted? No, bad. Sargon, befriended the army and convinced them to make a plan to betray the king. They wanted to kill the king of Kish, and so that Sargon could be king. Was being king of Kish enough for Sargon? No! Sargon wanted to rule all the city-states. He fought 50 wars, so he won them, and the new capital city was Akkad. And Sumer was now one country under one ruler. And it was all ruled by a military dictatorship. So Sargon was a military dictator. It means people must obey the army because Sargon, who's the ruler, the king, is in charge of the army, and he forces the army to punish people who don't follow his rules. So that is Sargon and how he started the Akkadian Empire for all of Mesopotamia. So if you'll take out your map page, we're going to do the map page. You need to go to a surface. Oh, my snack. My messy desk. You know about my messy desk. So, you will need your color pencils or crayons. I'm going to get some color pencils. And the first thing we're going to do, we're going to use our blue. Well, first you have to write your name and date on the top in pencil. It's 4/1/20. And now you'll get a blue. Actually, I'm going to use crayons. I think that'll be easiest for me to color with. We're going to use a blue. Should have had this all ready for my video. Okay, so do you see the Tigris and Euphrates rivers on your map? We're going to trace over those rivers in blue. So this is the area called Mesopotamia. This whole area between these two rivers is Mesopotamia. So, do you see the name Kish? This is where Sargon washed up on shore. So that's where they found him in the reeds in a little basket. So I'll let you finish tracing over those rivers. Do you recognize the Mediterranean Sea over here and the Persian Gulf over here? If you remember, the Nile River is over on this side. Actually, no, more like back here. But so over here. So this was where Egypt was. So I'll give you a chance to finish tracing those. So next, you're going to find Kish, and with your pencil, you can underline Kish because this is where Sargon washed up on shore, Kish. And Sargon conquered all of this area, so all the city-states within here. You're imagining, let's do in orange. There's a bunch of separate city-states. You can draw just some circles in there. Different separate city-states. Don't draw it above Mesopotamia because we're going to write something there. So Sargon conquered all of Mesopotamia and called his new empire Akkadia. We're going to draw a line through the word Mesopotamia. So we're going to cross it out. Because he pretty much conquered all of Mesopotamia. And we're going to write Akkadia to show that this is Sargon's new empire. A, K, 2 Ks. Not usually English thing to do. Akkadia. IA makes the ES sound. Akkadia. So all of this, Sargon brought into one new empire. So he connected them all. So if you want, you can take a red. You find a good red. You kind of like connected them all. We use red to show that by military force, he connected all these city-states to be one, the Akkadian Empire. The red is like that. He did it through military dictatorship. So yeah, that's it. We're not going to do anything else on this map. If you want to color the land green, if you want to color the other bodies of water like the Persian Gulf over here blue, my paper's moving, Mediterranean Sea, but that's really it. All this area between here, Sargon took over. So you also have the option of coloring today. You can color this picture of Sargon. This is what we imagined Sargon looked like. Remember, there were no cameras, so we don't actually know what he looked like, but I hope this was an enlightening history lesson for you, and I'll see you soon.